What if I told you that confidence isn't something you're born with, but something you build? Right now, your brain is quietly running old programs, self-doubt, fear of failure, playing small. But here's the truth, your brain is not fixed. It's flexible, it's rewritable. Every thought you repeat, every action you take is shaping who you become. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to rewire your brain for confidence, growth, and unstoppable momentum. These lessons can change how you see yourself and what you believe is possible. Watch till the end, because the final lesson might be the one that changes everything. Lesson 1. Your brain believes what you repeatedly tell it. The human brain is an incredibly sophisticated biological computer, but it possesses one significant flaw. It lacks an inherent filter for objective truth when it comes to self-perception. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections, is driven largely by the frequency of stimuli. When you engage in repetitive self-talk, you are essentially providing the programming code for your subconscious mind. If that code is riddled with bugs like "I am a failure" or "I never get things right," the brain doesn't stop to verify these claims against reality. Instead, it accepts them as foundational truths and begins to filter your external environment to find evidence that supports these internal scripts. This is known as confirmation bias, where your mind actively seeks out moments that reinforce your perceived inadequacies while ignoring successes that contradict them. Every thought you have sparks a chemical reaction and a neural pathway. Imagine these pathways as trails in a dense forest. The more often you walk a specific path, the path of "I'm not good enough," the wider, smoother, and more permanent that trail becomes. Eventually, your brain defaults to this path because it requires the least amount of metabolic energy to navigate. This is why breaking a cycle of low self-esteem feels so physically and mentally exhausting. You are literally trying to hack a new trail through thick brush while your brain is screaming at you to take the paved road of self-criticism. However, the same biological mechanism that traps you in negativity can be used to build an unbreakable foundation of confidence. By consciously choosing empowering language, you are initiating a software update for your identity. Replacing limiting self-talk is not about toxic positivity or lying to yourself. It is about intentional neuro-linguistic programming. When you shift your vocabulary from "I can't do this" to "I am currently learning how to do this," you change the brain's state from a closed loop of stress to an open state of problem solving. This shift lowers cortisol levels and allows the prefrontal cortex, the seat of logic and creativity, to function more effectively. Over time, these small, consistent injections of empowering language begin to erode the old negative neural pathways. You are not just thinking differently, you are physically restructuring the hardware of your mind. As you speak growth into your life daily, you are training your brain to become your most powerful ally rather than your loudest critic. The implications of this lesson are profound because they place the power of personal evolution squarely in your hands. You are the architect of your internal monologue. If you were to record every thought you had in a single day and play it back, would it sound like the words of a mentor or a bully? Most people are shocked to realize how harshly they speak to themselves. To change your life, you must first change the narrative. This requires a relentless commitment to monitoring your thoughts and correcting them in real time. It is a slow process of attrition, but as the weeks turn into months, the repetition of strength and capability becomes your new default setting. Your brain eventually stops questioning your potential and starts operating from a place of settled conviction that you are indeed more than enough. Lesson 2. Discomfort is a signal of growth, not danger. Evolutionarily speaking, our brains are designed for one primary purpose: survival. To our ancestors, discomfort often signaled a physical threat, a predator in the bushes, an unstable cliffside, or the social rejection of the tribe, which meant certain death. Consequently, our amygdala, the brain's alarm system, is highly sensitive to anything that feels off or challenging. In the modern world, however, we rarely face saber-toothed tigers. Instead, we face the discomfort of public speaking, the anxiety of starting a new business, or the awkwardness of a difficult conversation. The brain, using its ancient hardware, often misinterprets this psychological discomfort as a life-threatening emergency. To grow, you must learn to override this primitive fight-or-flight response and recognize that modern discomfort is almost always a signal of expansion, not extinction. When you feel that tightness in your chest or the urge to retreat from a challenging situation, you are standing at the threshold of what neuroscientists call the proximal zone of development. This is the space where your current abilities are being stretched just beyond their comfortable limit. If you stay within your comfort zone, your neural pathways remain static and eventually begin to atrophy. But when you lean into the discomfort, you trigger the release of neurochemicals like norepinephrine and dopamine, which heighten focus and facilitate the growth of new synapses. This is the biological process of becoming braver. Each time you endure the burn of a difficult experience without running away, you are teaching your nervous system that you can handle stress. You are expanding your window of tolerance. Avoiding discomfort creates a paradox. The more you try to keep your life safe and easy, the smaller and more fragile your world becomes. Avoidance behavior reinforces the brain's belief that the thing you are avoiding is actually dangerous, which increases your anxiety the next time you encounter it. Conversely, voluntary exposure to discomfort is the fastest way to build resilience. Think of it like a vaccine. By exposing yourself to a small controlled dose of stress, you build up an immunity to fear. This doesn't mean the discomfort disappears entirely, but your relationship to it changes. You begin to welcome the butterflies in your stomach as a sign that you are about to do something significant. You start to see the danger signal as a go signal. True mastery of the mind involves a radical reframing of pain. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" or "How can I make this stop?" the growth-oriented individual asks, "What is this teaching me?" or "How is this making me stronger?" This shift in perspective moves you from a passive victim of your biology to an active participant in your evolution. As you consistently choose the path of most resistance, your brain begins to associate discomfort with the reward of progress. Eventually, you reach a point where a lack of discomfort feels like stagnation. You become a person who seeks out challenges, not because you are fearless, but because you have learned that fear is the compass pointing toward the person you are meant to become. The danger was a lie. The growth is the only truth. Lesson 3. Action comes before confidence. One of the most pervasive myths in self-development is the idea that we must wait for a spark of confidence or motivation before we can take meaningful action. We tell ourselves, "I'll start that project when I feel more ready," or "I'll ask for that promotion when I feel more confident." In reality, waiting for confidence is a form of sophisticated procrastination. Confidence is not a prerequisite for action, it is a byproduct of it. From a neurological perspective, confidence is the result of a competence loop. When you take an action, your brain observes your ability to navigate a task, records the successful outcome, no matter how small, and then rewards you with a sense of efficacy. You cannot think your way into confidence, you must act your way into it. Every time you take a step toward a goal while feeling uncertain or afraid, you are providing your brain with evidence of your own agency. This evidence is far more powerful than any mantra or visualization. If you want to believe you are a writer, you don't wait for the feeling of being an author, you write a page. If you want to be a confident leader, you don't wait for the feeling of authority, you make a decision. This small win strategy is vital because it bypasses the brain's fear response. A massive looming goal can be paralyzing, but a tiny manageable action feels safe. Once that small action is completed, the brain experiences a hit of dopamine, which provides the motivation for the next action. This is how momentum is built, one small bold step at a time. The reason action is so effective is that it forces the brain to reconcile its internal self-image with external reality. If you tell yourself you are shy but then spend 5 minutes talking to a stranger, your brain experiences cognitive dissonance. To resolve this tension, the brain must update its identity files. Wait, I just spoke to someone new, so maybe I'm not as shy as I thought. By repeatedly showing up in ways that contradict your fears, you are essentially gaslighting your own insecurities until they disappear. You are proving to yourself through the undeniable medium of physical reality that your limitations are largely self-imposed. This is the process of building earned confidence, a type of self-belief that is grounded in experience and cannot be easily shaken by external criticism. Furthermore, taking action while scared is the ultimate form of mental training. It teaches you that your emotions do not have to dictate your movements. You learn to treat fear as a passenger in the car rather than the driver. When you decouple your actions from your feelings, you become unstoppable. You no longer need the perfect mood to be productive or the perfect environment to be brave. You simply show up because that is what you do. Over time, the gap between the thought and the action narrows until you become a person of decisive movement. Your brain, watching this consistent display of initiative, eventually grants you the feeling of confidence you were originally waiting for. The feeling was never the engine, it was always the exhaust. Lesson 4. Your environment shapes your mind. We often like to think of ourselves as independent thinkers, but biology suggests we are far more like sponges. Our brains are equipped with mirror neurons, which are designed to mimic the behaviors, emotions, and attitudes of those around us. This was a vital survival mechanism for social bonding, but in the modern age it means your mental landscape is being constantly terraformed by your environment. If you spend your time in an environment filled with cynicism, gossip, and small-mindedness, your brain will naturally adopt those frequencies as its baseline. You cannot expect to have a high-performance mind if you are constantly feeding it low-quality data from your social circle, your media consumption, and your physical surroundings. The concept of environmental design is one of the most overlooked aspects of mental rewiring. Every piece of information you consume is a brick in the wall of your reality. If you start your morning by scrolling through doom-laden news or toxic social media comments, you are setting your brain's reticular activating system RAS to look for threats and reasons to be angry for the rest of the day. Conversely, if you curate your environment to include challenging books, inspiring podcasts, and mentors who hold you to a higher standard, you are providing your brain with the raw materials for growth. You must become the bouncer of your own mind, ruthlessly vetting who and what gets past the velvet rope. Protection of your mental space is not an act of elitism, it is an act of self-preservation. It is often said that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and from a neurobiological standpoint, this is remarkably accurate. Emotional contagion is a real phenomenon where we catch the stress or the optimism of our peers. If your inner circle consists of people who are comfortable with mediocrity, their comfort will eventually become your ceiling. To grow, you must intentionally place yourself in high-pressure environments where your current best is the baseline. This might feel intimidating at first, referencing Lesson 2's discomfort, but the environmental pull of high achievers will naturally elevate your own standards. Your brain will begin to mirror their work ethic, their vocabulary, and their belief systems, making growth feel less like a struggle and more like an inevitability. Finally, your physical environment plays a subtle but massive role in your mental clarity and focus. A cluttered, chaotic workspace sends constant low-grade stress signals to the brain, suggesting that there is unfinished business everywhere you look. By creating an environment that reflects the person you want to become, organized, focused, and inspiring, you reduce cognitive load and free up mental energy for creative work. This extends to the digital world as well. The apps on your home screen and the people you follow are all programming your brain's expectations of reality. Take a radical inventory of your inputs. If it doesn't challenge you, inspire you, or provide genuine value, it is likely cluttering the path to your potential. Feed your mind like you would feed an elite athlete's body. Lesson 5. Identity is the ultimate rewire. Most people approach change through the lens of outcomes or processes. They say, I want to lose weight, the outcome, so I will go to the gym, the process. While this can work temporarily, it often fails because the underlying identity remains unchanged. If you still view yourself as an unhealthy person who is trying to diet, your brain will eventually find a way to return to its perceived home state. The most powerful way to create permanent change is to shift the focus from what you want to achieve to who you are. This is identity-based habit formation. When you change the root identity, I am an athlete, the behaviors associated with that identity, eating well, training, become natural expressions of who you are, rather than chores you have to force yourself to do. Identity functions as the operating system of the human psyche. Once a belief about the self is baked into the subconscious, the brain will go to extreme lengths to ensure that its actions align with that belief. This is why a person who identifies as bad with money will often subconsciously sabotage a financial windfall. To rewire your life, you must start by auditing your I am statements. Every time you say I am always late or I am just not a morning person, you are casting a vote for that identity. To change, you must begin to cast votes for a new identity through small, consistent actions. You don't need a total transformation overnight. You just need to prove to yourself one decision at a time that you are the type of person you want to become. When you begin to ask, who am I becoming, instead of what should I do, you activate the brain's highest levels of reasoning. This shift moves you away from the drifter mentality, where you are simply reacting to the world, to the architect mentality. For example, if you are faced with a difficult choice, don't ask what the easiest path is. Ask, what would a disciplined, growth-driven version of myself do in this situation? By consistently choosing the answer that aligns with your desired identity, you are performing a deep-level rewire. You are teaching your brain that the old version of you is obsolete. This process is essentially a death and rebirth of the self, where you consciously shed the skin of your past limitations to make room for a more capable version of yourself. The beauty of identity-based change is that it creates an automaticity of excellence. When your identity is firmly rooted in growth and discipline, you no longer have to burn through your limited supply of willpower to make good choices. A person who identifies as a non-smoker doesn't try not to smoke, they simply don't smoke because it's not who they are. Likewise, when you truly identify as a confident and capable individual, you stop trying to be brave and simply start acting with courage as a matter of course. Your brain has aligned your actions with your identity, and the friction of self-improvement disappears. This is the ultimate goal of the mental rewire, to reach a point where your highest potential is no longer a goal you are chasing, but the reality you are living. Rewiring your brain isn't magic, it's a daily practice. Thought by thought, action by action, choice by choice. Confidence and growth are not destinations, they are habits you build. Start today, start small, but most importantly, start now. Because the moment you change how you think, you change what you become.